We got some new NFL 2K news. Some really good news today about the upcoming NFL 2K games. Yes, that's games with an S, multiple, coming very soon. Now, if you're new to the channel before we get started and you always want to be up to date on the latest 2K news, or if you want to stay up to date on Madden news, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you never miss any of the uploads. We're just running it up crazy. Current sub count up on the screen. I appreciate you guys so much. If you're new, join the family, drop a comment below. But enough of that, let's get into the 2K news. Okay, so here's the news that just dropped. 2K's non-simulation NFL games will feature real-life players. Now, let me break all this down to you and let you know what everything means. So, a few months ago, we got word that 2K signed a deal with the NFL to produce non-simulation games. This means that they're going to be making arcade-style games, like an NFL Blitz or an NFL Street, those types of games, or like one of their other games, the NBA Playgrounds, maybe an NFL version of that. Now, EA is the exclusive maker of simulation games, which means games that try to replicate real life. The player models look more realistic. It's meant to simulate Sundays. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, Madden doesn't really simulate the NFL that good anymore. And, you know, that's an argument to be had. But what I'm saying is what 2K's games are going to be are not going to look like a Madden game. It's going to look more of those like big archetype type bodies, you know, the big player models with the big heads. It's going to be really over the top style gameplay, but that could still be pretty fun. Now, what was interesting at the time was they inked a deal with the NFL to use real NFL teams and stadiums and things like that. Now, myself, among many others, also said, well, hold up, they don't have a license with the NFL Players Association, and if they don't have that, they can't use real players. So we were assuming maybe it's going to be, you know, made up players, or maybe it was going to be created players, like creating your own avatar and putting it into the game. 2K is really popular for that in their other sports games, which that wouldn't have been the worst idea, and they still might even implement something like that in their game. But today, they finally inked a deal with the NFL Players Association, which is really huge. It says 2K announces a partnership with One Team Partners and the NFL Players Association to include football's most prominent star players in future NFL 2K games. 2K currently has multiple football games in development, which will start launching in 2021, and this partnership will allow them to feature the names, numbers, images, and likeness for over 2,000 current NFL players. Now, what's interesting here is it says current NFL players. It doesn't mention anything about past players or legends, and I thought something like that would be a good idea for these types of arcade games. If you're familiar with Madden in their Ultimate Team mode, you got players like Randy Moss, Barry Sanders, all of those old school players that people love. EA has deals with those guys. They pay them a certain amount of money, and they use them in the game. Now, I don't know if NFL have exclusive rights to those players, if they say, hey, you know, if we do this deal, you can't sign your rights over to any other football game. I don't know if that's kind of something they have in place with them, because I would assume that if 2K was making these arcade games, they would want to include legend players along with the current players. In fact, for arcade style games, it seems even more necessary to, you know, want to go after those old school players. So I don't know if EA has any type of exclusive deals in place with those individual players, but for now, we know for sure all we're going to get is the current NFL players, which is still the most important step for 2K. And again, there might still be some created player options, I would assume, in these games, just judging off of 2K's other games. It says here, 2K president noted, we're thrilled to be working with the NFLPA and One Team to bring the biggest and best stars in football to the games we're working on. We want to give fans experiences that are authentic, memorable, and fun, and having a roster of real-life sports heroes through the Players Association and One Team is a huge part of delivering on that promise. 2K has a proven track record of high-profile and successful business relationships with other sports leagues, professional athletes, and their collective fans. The label makes some of the best sports video games in the world, and we look forward to working with 2K, our players, and One Team on future projects. Sports video gaming is a massive growth category, and the partnership between the NFLPA and 2K presents an opportunity not only to excite current gamers, but also reach untapped future audiences. Our role is to bring together strong collective rights that can be supported by the most innovative and creative businesses, benefiting all stakeholders. We are pleased to be a part of this important partnership. Now, the biggest thing that everybody keeps wondering is, well, what is the game going to be like? And that we don't know 100%. We know that by looking at past arcade games, like I said, NFL Street, NFL Blitz, it's probably going to be something like that. If you look at some of their current games like NBA Playgrounds and their upcoming WWE Battlegrounds, they could be like that too. Now, they said multiple games starting next year. So you have to think we're probably about a year away from the next NFL 2K game. And even though it's not going to be NFL 2K5, there's a good chance the first game could resemble something like an NBA Playground Playgrounds or WWE Battlegrounds, which I think is not what most people want. But the fact that they're making multiple games is pretty big in my opinion, because to me that means at least one of the games they put out will likely resemble something at least, you know, in the realm of an NFL Street, which I think people would like. I think this is also why Madden is kind of trying to jump on this and get ahead of it, and they're trying to put their yard mode in the game that has been leaking, and there's a reason they haven't really promoted it, because it probably isn't ready. And a big reason as to why it probably isn't ready is because while this may have been something they've wanted to do, maybe they're trying to kind of rush it and do it maybe a little bit quicker than they anticipated doing it once they found out about this deal between 2K and the NFL, and now they want to get this out and kind of beat 2K to market by having that arcade style game within Madden, because they don't want to just lose a big chunk of their audience to 2K that does want to just go play that over-the-top arcade style game. That's what I think, at least. But we could really expect, you know, what is a simulation, right? Because a lot of people argue Madden's not really that much of a simulation, but it at least attempts to be. We don't know exactly what the rules for non-simulation are. Like, could the game be somewhat close to simulation, but they can just alter some of the rules and maybe make it 7-on-7 as opposed to 11-on-11? Would that fly as non-simulation in terms of the NFL? Yes, I think it would. So we might see something that actually plays, you know, more realistic than an NFL Street or NFL Blitz, but it's not going to be the exact rule sets or the exact number of players on the field. But I think if it does play somewhat realistic while still having some of those little arcadey elements in there, I think a lot of people would be excited to play that. I know I'm excited to play it, but all we know is multiple games, so we're going to probably have one that's like super over the top, super for the kids, and there's probably going to be another one that's a blend that's more for everybody. Adults could have fun with it, kids could have fun with it, and all that stuff. But the fact that they have now locked in the NFL Players Association license is huge. That means we're going to at least see our favorite players that we know and love. We're going to have Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, you know, Odell Beckham. We're going to see those names in the game, and we're going to see real teams, real stadiums. So I think that is probably the biggest selling point for people, is another NFL licensed game by a AAA studio such as 2K, a studio that we've seen produce a lot of great sports games. NFL 2K5, All Pro Football 2K8, what they've done with their NBA 2K series, even though it's had its ups and downs lately, over the history of that series, it's still more good than bad, and it still has a lot of things in it that truthfully we haven't seen Madden put in their game as of lately. So to see them come back and to have that competition and to possibly have that door open, I think it's exciting for a lot of people. Even though we're starting with arcade, who knows where this could go once the next exclusive sim license runs out. If 2K really knocks it out of the park and gets a lot of support on these arcade style games, maybe we see the NFL finally allow them to make simulation games in the next 5 to 6 years. It's wishful thinking, but I think it's something to be excited about. That's going to be all for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and the latest update on the next NFL 2K game. As always, I will see you guys next time.